Hello, I'm Allie,
I'm Deb.
and welcome to another episode of Connected Conversations.
So, if you're a mother and you're searching for work-life balance, this is the episode you have to check in on. So, I am not a mother. However, I am a, let's say, stepmom to teenagers, which I think is a whole different ballgame.
Teenagers are a whole different ballgame.
Just like every time I've told someone, oh, I have like stepkids or they're teenagers, the faces I get are unreal. Anyway, that's besides the point. The point of our podcast today is going to be talking about the conception of work-life balance and motherhood. And I'm going to make a pretty bold statement, Deb, and you are a mother. You have done it all. You have been in corporate. You've switched to entrepreneurship. You're blazing that trail. I want to go as boldly and say that maybe that just doesn't exist and we should kick it out the door and start looking at it in a different way. Because a lot of the super moms I know out there struggle, and yet they're still doing it all. And balance, I think, probably from different stages and games and relationships is going to constantly be this moving target. So that's my bold statement. And then maybe I'll chime in later with my newfound information of being that stepmom and me navigating how to kind of like switch my schedules and what my new balance and norms looking like.
I like it. I think it is a moving target. It's always a moving target because every stage, every age of your kids, there's always something different. And I think we have to lose the superhuman, superwoman mentality that you have to do it all. And I think I didn't ask for help, like I did. I now look back and I'm like, why didn't I just ask for help or support? Why didn't I talk to my friends about it? Why, instead of me running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to get my kids to sports, why didn't I look to other parents and maybe say, okay, I'll do Tuesday if you do Thursday? Like making it
Mhm.
work for me versus I literally was like going from work, get the kids off the bus. Then it was straight into hockey or dance or volleyball or something. All my kids played competitive sports. So it was always something. And then like dinner, like that's just a whole other ball game because how do you get, how do you do it all? And, meal prep, I think, looking at your schedule and then figuring out how to optimize your time. So meal prep was not my strong point. I was
Mm.
sandwiches on the run, crock pots were running, but we didn't even have time to stop at the house. Sometimes it's like I'm packing it to go on a bus to hockey. So I was never strong at that, but I think asking for help would definitely be one piece of advice I would say if you have other moms that you can coordinate pickups, drop-offs, that sort of thing, such a huge helper. But um self-care, I think we talk about it all the time and how important it is, but if you lose your sense of self, you're you're not going to show up for your kids the best way. You're not going to be able to, um, have those conversations with your kids because you're not even having those conversations with yourself. So I think self-care and carving a piece out for yourself each and every day is so important. And as a single mom, for all you single mothers out there, I know how hard that is. I know how hard it is to carve out 5 to 10 minutes for yourself, even just to like go out and scream for like a minute, right? Like you need those releases. So figuring out your stress management strategies, what works for you. Maybe it's just getting outside for 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe it's doing, 10 sit-ups or 10 push-ups or whatever that is. Maybe it's a workout, maybe it's a walk in nature. But I think prioritizing your self-care in order to show up for your family the way that you need to is hugely important. But let's talk about stepkids because that's a different ball of wax altogether.
Mm.
How do you
Before we
how do you
do, I
manage
just want to
that?
say I love how you were saying like self-care, I think, has this vision of like this long, luxurious bath. However, I do know a woman that's like, fuck, sometimes I'm in the bath for like an hour and I'm like, I gotta get out of here.
You
Like
go
I'm
to the
burning enough
bathroom just to
holes.
have 5 minutes.
So what you said is, I think, very relevant. So like you can have these huge, big strategies, and it could just be like that 5 minutes you sit in your car, not in your driveway, but like somewhere by yourself just for 5 minutes, because then it is that alone time. Or like you say, screaming. Like when I'm really angry, my girlfriends know, like, have you screamed in your Jeep lately? 'Cause I will go into the middle of nowhere and like scream at the top of my lungs and drive. And there's something with that energy that I just can release with. So I love how you were saying that, because you've walked that path as like a mother and a wife with young kids, transitioning to single mom, and that feeling of like I have to do it on my own, because that's what you're choosing, right? Because you still want to be there for them, I imagine. So I think that's really, really great information for anyone out there to say, like, you're not alone and you don't have to do it alone.
And I used to
And
carve out time, like for example, because for me, running is a good stress reliever. I love that. There's nothing better to me than how you feel after a run. So I couldn't leave my son at hockey at the time. He was just a little tyke, so he was only like 5 or 6 at the time. So I couldn't leave this space, but they had a running track. So I used to do my 10 kilometers running in a circle. It was mindless. I hated the scenery, but that's the only place I could fit it in. Or like on the bus to hockey, I would bring my book or my journals because maybe I didn't have time that morning to get everything done. So I would take it with me. So it's finding those little spaces of time in order to maximize the personal space that I needed.
hmm, it doesn't have to look like you think it looks.
No.
It's living in that land of and.
And it is like reassessing because every season is a bit different. Hockey obviously is September till April or whenever it is. And, swimming, soccer is in the summer. So it's reassessing all the time and making adjustments as you need to. But I think really connecting with other mothers and having that open dialogue with other women, because there's the Martha Stewarts that always have like the perfect lunch packed with like, I slapped a sandwich together for goodness sakes, but like there's these mothers that would have like these elaborate, like gourmet meals on the hockey bus. So I think another one is like remove that self-judgment, because I'm like, okay, I got a sandwich together. That's a win for me. I didn't have the potluck with the, I don't know, hamburger casserole or whatever it was. I didn't do that. So
I
removing
will
that.
not shame myself
I'm
with
not.
sandwiches today.
I slapped the sandwich together and that was good enough. My son was, he had a meal in front of him. It wasn't elaborate, but it was something.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love that. Well, the shame we put on ourselves. And it's so
Oh, so much
self-inflicted.
pressure, right? It's so much pressure. Like remove that. You're doing the best you can.
Hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful. I hope that's helpful for some mom out there that maybe is just struggling on the struggle bus. Like, it's
On the
okay.
struggle bus. It's
Put it
there.
on,
It's
put it in the
real.
comments, like what's going on, what's happening, and just let it go. And know that support is everywhere. Even though you may think that you're alone, you're definitely not. Definitely not. So being a stepmom, what a ride, man. I don't think I ever put that in my like vision board.
That wasn't on your
Wasn't on my
bucket
radar.
list.
Wasn't on my radar for a while, really long time. And I think what I've learned is like some of these questions, like I have been so independent my whole entire life. I think that's been my biggest adjustment is I have played that lone wolf game. Maybe not as a mom and people that are relying on me, but like I too had that like I'm in this alone. Like COVID, I was alone. I didn't have people around me. I had family and friends that were scared of me because like that's the fear that was putting around us. And yet I was like literally working alone, going to a grocery store alone. Like I just look back at it and I think there's like different levels or different spectrums of like what loneliness can look like. And I was physically alone and still like I'm going to do it on my own. So now having a family, I can see how my independence reigns and it's hard for me to be part of a different family unit. So first of all, I think any stepmoms out there, I can read the personal development books, understand it. And I think the biggest thing was like, really want to get a grasp on like, what is the family rules or what has already been existed. Cause I guess like, I know I have my own position of what my teenage life was like and the do's and the don'ts and family household, but that isn't what they're used to. First of all, I grew up 600 people, small town. Like no one does that. Like that's unknown. They're in Toronto. It's like a whole different ballgame that we're playing. So it was understanding that like I'm coming into a family unit that's also within like a divorce and there's emotions and everything else. So how am I incorporating myself in? And I've also had a hard time of like being part of this family. Again, for being single for almost a decade, like coming in and having people around all the time. I think my sleep has been something I struggle with. Having alone time, like as much as I was lonely, now it's like, how do I get alone? Like, how do moms do this? And like, how, like this whole dinner thing, like what is for dinner is the bane of my existence right now. So I've like thrown it to the kids, like, what do you want for dinner? Oh, I don't care. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Just tell me what you want, kid. Anyway, and I think it's just like there's a whole other stress. And I think the toughest part is it's like for myself, I'll speak for myself. I'm coming in late at the game, and there's just, I think for myself, it's really tough to feel like part of it in some respects because I'm just not part of it the same way
Yeah.
as anything else. I don't get the context of things. I don't have maybe like it's been very clear I'm not their mother. Like that isn't the case. So there's just, I feel like still that lone wolf inside me, that outsider. And I think that's been tough to adjust to. And again, like they're boys, so I don't get it sometimes, like how much they eat, the language, the timing, like everything. So I think me adjusting to it and finding again that self-care, that self-alone time, how do I make that happen when there is no space, when there isn't my own energy, or I'm dealing with fires that again, like I don't understand the nuances of the personalities, like I'm getting to know them. So when things hit the fan, life happens, it's almost like extra stressful because I'm like, I never thought that I'd have to deal with this. Like I don't know. Well, I don't know. They're adults, let them deal with it. But as an adult, I should help guide them. So I think it goes back to again when you say like stress management, understanding where can you carve out time. And I have a partner, so it's like carving that time out and letting him know. Like he's not a mind reader. So if you're looking at someone, a partner or someone, no one's a mind reader. They're not going to be able to know exactly what you need. It's like clearly communicating what that looks like. And sometimes for me, that's like everyone out. I don't even want you breathing near me. And I don't know. It's like you're breathing next to me and around me is just setting me through the roof. And it's just because like there's so much energy. So that time away is really important, and still carving out time for girls or time just to have alone. And that comes down to again that self-care, self-love. So I'm still who I am and not now moving into that like caregiver role, because again that's just not where my path I thought was going. Being a mom wasn't something that I thought was going to be able to be in my realm.
But
So that's my experience.
I think it's important to note that even though that you are not their biological mother and you're not looking to fill that space, there's still a lot that you're offering them in terms of your own perspectives and how you've experienced life. So I don't think that you should downplay your role in their life. I can relate to how you feel. My partner has 3 girls, and he doesn't see them a ton. So I like to respect that space so that he can have that time with them. So I try not to interject myself too much in their time. But when I do, I honestly, like, because you want them to like you, right? Like that's just human nature. You want people to like you.
It's a community. You want to be part of
But
something.
yeah, like I want to be part of it, but and I'm not looking to be their mom either, but I just don't feel accepted. Like I really don't. And And that's a tough spot to be in sometimes. So I'm trying not to purposely avoid it. But at the same time, I don't want to feel like I'm walking on eggshells to get you to like me, or you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I think the girls would like this. Maybe I'll pick it up. But I'm like, I'm not going to buy their love either. So I guess I show up I'm just me, and I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm always friendly. I'm always nice. Um, I will always treat them with the utmost respect, but I'm also not just a doormat to be, I don't know, sometimes ignored. So I find that space very hard. I guess it's been, I don't know, 6 to 8 months since I first met the girls, and they are all lovely. They are all different, just like my own kids. They're all very different in how they interact. And yeah, I don't feel like I'm part of the pack, and I find that frustrating at times. So for all those people that are in the same boat, I think it's just something that's just going to take time. But I'm not going to not be me. I'm not going to show up any differently than I would my own kids. I will treat them exactly how I treat my own kids, with the utmost respect and communication.
Mm. Yeah, and it's a this whole new work in progress, right? Like you're dealing with like I think their own emotions and feelings and growing into things, and especially when their minds are so young, right? It's like, don't take it personally.
And
And I think I tell myself that all the time. It's like, just don't take it personally.
I don't
It's all fine.
my parents have been married for 50 years, right? I've
Mm,
never experienced. So I
me
know
too.
what my kids have gone through or experienced through divorce. So I don't know how, what their experience is. It's a stressful time. It's a stressful time for the people in it, and it's a stressful time for the kids that are involved, and you don't know the emotional fallout from seeing your parents go through separation and divorce. It's a tough time.
Hmm. Hmm. So sprinkle some extra love,
Yeah.
compassion for yourself and others. And I think it's just like I think it always comes down to like that embracing yourself and your individuality. And then I think that also gives space for people to express themselves too in that opportunity,
I
especially
like
like the
that.
young women and the guys, like they're carving their own adventures and wanting their own freedom, and how does that play out for them? And also, yeah, giving them opportunity for a new perspective, because your perspective is very different. Same with mine. It's just, yeah, that extra gauge of like, oh, well, this is just where I'm at. But I think that when we go back to the original context of this conversation, it's like work-life balance and how does that work out? I think again, that moving target, ask yourself like, what would what would that look like for you if you could paint the picture? How would you want to show up? How would you want to take care of yourself? Because you're also showing other people how they can take care of themselves too, especially when they're younger. Like you're teaching them that maybe rest is okay, that you don't always have to be busy. You're teaching them grace or compassion. And it's just going to be this like dance through life. No, that like the whole feeling of like filling your own cup, but like allowing your cup just to be like the cup that you want. You're
I
not
love
picking a
that.
cup that you don't like or it's too small or whatever. Like just make your own cup first. Like decide what that's looking like before you start filling it in with shit. Find that beautiful cup. Winners has got a bunch of them. I'm constantly looking them on the way out, screaming at me, you need another
I think there's one thing that you said, that made me think of this. I always wanted to be like the fun mom, or I
one.
never felt like I was the fun mom. I always felt like, my kids' dad remarried, so maybe had a little bit more support in managing their schedule. And I just always like he was always doing like the fun stuff, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm fun because I'm always doing, the stuff that, you have to manage a household, you have to do the laundry, you have to do the dishes. And I think I remember having this conversation with my kids, and my oldest son said to me, sometimes we just like to just be. Sometimes we just like to be at home not always on the go, not always going somewhere. So we can just hang out with our friends and not always be doing something. So I think for the especially single moms, I think that that's a hard thing to do sometimes, is to release the judgment of not always being the fun person. And I would also say the dishes can wait. So do I wish that maybe I had maybe gone outside and played with the kids versus doing the dishes or the laundry? Yeah, I do, in retrospect, now that my kids are older
Mm.
and definitely a lot more busy, on their own accord, hanging out with friends. So the dishes can wait. You can take that 5 minutes and go outside and play with your kids. You can also say no to other people, set your boundaries, and just hold the space for yourself and hold the space for your family and your kids. And for the stepmoms out there, hold the space for those conversations that will eventually come, and just honor yourself with grace and compassion.
Mm. I love
We will be back on Monday live to kickstart your week on YouTube. So please join us there. And we will be back next Thursday with another episode of Connected Conversation.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share with your friends and rate and recommend on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. There will be links to more great resources in the description.